Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to A Blast from the Past. This is patch 0.9.3 and this is the tier 10 British medium. Yes, this is back in ye olden days when the FV was in fact still the tier 10. Also my first tier 10 medium tank, and it maybe tells you how comparatively little I play mediums overall, that my second tier 10 medium tank, the E50M, I only acquired about a month and a half ago. So yeah, this is in that span from 2014 till now, in 2017 or late 2016, whenever it was I bought the E50M, I didn't acquire a single tier 10 medium tank. So yeah, I guess I just need to play more mediums, hey. So, anyway, yes, this is a tier 10 game, circle on there in the Object 140. This was probably on stream. I can't remember the circumstances because, hey, it was 2014. It's going back a ways. I can tell you, however, it's been the most tremendous pain in the behind to get this recorded. This is not a long replay. But in order to get it recorded, I've had to re-download the 0.9.3 client. I've had to try and record multiple times with different settings. I've experimented with my Bandicam settings even, and I also had to find some old files to try and unpick some bits of some mods to get the other mods working, because 9.3 is back when I was still using Gnome Fathers, and that was causing rather bad FPS drops. Gnome Fathers was alright as a sound mod pack for... I only ever used the guns. I know you did one for engine sounds as well, but it was not well optimised, and it did rather bad things to the frame rate, especially for the first couple of games when you were playing tanks. And when you're recording tanks, well, you just have to run the replay through over and over again. And I was like, I just thought, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go and get a clean copy of 0.9.3, which I did, and it took about an hour to download, and then I had to do a whole bunch of fiddling to unpick the bits of Gnome Fathers from the mods from my other copy of 0.9.3, and it's just been a complete pain in the butt. However, what is interesting going back is seeing just how much more optimized the client is these days, how much better it runs. Without recording, the frame rate of this replay was around about 50 to 60. With recording, it was dipping down to the high 30s, as you can see in the top left corner. I can now, with World of Tanks, the current version, in fact the last couple of versions, record at 60 FPS, no problem. Now, I've kind of given up doing 60 FPS videos because Vegas wasn't being very reliable in terms of then turning that footage into a 60 FPS output video. But, well, at least, I could record it theoretically if I wanted to. It's easier to stick with 30, so that's what I've gone back to. But just getting this to record at above 30 consistently was a pain in the butt. So yeah, World of Tanks has come on a really long way in the last 2 years, just in terms of how well it runs. So finally I'm doing something. I've been poking around the edges up until now, because if you stick your face into the middle of a bunch of enemy tanks in this thing, I mean, it's still true these days, it doesn't have any armour, really. And because of that very prominent turret ring, any damage you do take, getting your turret knocked out or just even turned yellow was a very frequent occurrence. And as you can imagine, this thing already feels sluggish. Having a sluggish turret on top of that does not help matters. So this is a tank where you had to be, and still really do, as it's now a tier 8 premium, you have to be very circumspect. So whilst Circon had been mixing it up, and unfortunately he's just died to a bat shout, but he'd been mixing it up, gotten 2 kills and something like 3,000 damage, I can't afford to plow in head first in the same way that he can in the Object 140. The FV just was not built that way, and it was regarded as being the weakest tier 10 medium, and I think that was, at the time, fairly well justified. The gun was pretty good. The gun is basically the I want to say the L1, or is it the L7A1? I can't remember. But it's basically the 105mm that you see at tier 10 nowadays on the Action 10. Hello, Tiger 2. Boop! So, you know, the gun was nice. The gun depression was alright. I think it had a good view range. It's just 35 kilometers an hour plus no armor. Now, there is actually good news. The premium, you know, the now tier 8 that this is getting a speed buff to, I think it's 45, because it already was buffed to 40. And it's now going to get even faster, and that's going to become relevant later on in this replay, where in literally any other medium tank I would have gotten away with pulling a particular move, but in this thing I did not. So anyway, I've come back down through the middle to come up behind the IS-7, who really wants this mouse dead. Really wants this mouse dead, even to the extent of just completely ignoring the FV that's shooting his bottom full of holes. That sounded a bit wrong, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I could have probably gotten some assistance damage out of that. I did try for a tracking shot, but I did it in a completely ham-fisted manner, so that didn't work. But I did, however, get quite a decent amount of damage out of that IS-7. Almost 1500, which is better than anything I've done on other targets so far. So it's just down to the last couple of enemies at this point. They had rather too many heavy tanks up in this northwest corner, and it meant that we were able to run around and do bad things to the rest of their team, essentially. So we've basically won this. It's just a matter of hoovering up these last couple of guys. So this is the point where, yeah, any other medium tank, you know, I'm trying to push to the cover of this house. Any other medium tank, I would have made it. But because this thing is so very slow, I did not, and took over 800 damage for my pains. But at least I survived the hit. I had enough hit points. So my final shot, I take the track on the WZ, and that's going to be a bit of assistance damage. So there we are, 2500 assistance damage and 3500 damage done, with a base XP of just over 1000. So it was really the assistance damage, the spotting assistance that put me at the top of the team. I mean, Serkon actually did almost as much damage as I did, but I doubt he got quite as much. Shout out to that mouse as well, although he was a bit, I don't know, in the chat. But, you know, he was playing relatively well for a mouse. He positioned himself fairly well, and with my intervention managed to survive. And then all the way down at the bottom, there's that IS-8 with, like, what was that, 36 damage? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. So, that was an interesting glimpse back into the past. Patch 0.9.3, when that was still a tier 10 and HD tank models were still new and shiny and the client didn't run very well. How times have changed. So hopefully you enjoyed this glimpse back into the past. And if you have, you can leave any comments below. You can hit the like button. You can sub to my channel if you haven't already. And, as always, stay tuned for more.